Eugene Debs believed in socialism because he believed in democracy. There are three main principles of Debs's politics. The first one was democracy. This was understood as the sort of struggle to topple unaccountable hierarchies and relations of domination. And once he believed that, he sort of started to move towards socialism. The second was internationalism and the importance of international solidarity. The struggles of workers everywhere were connected, and if you took the principles of democracy seriously, it was impossible to believe in hierarchies across borders too. The third principle is working class power. Workers were absolutely central to Debs' conception of socialism. He viewed them as a central agent, really, that would win democracy and socialism. He was born on November 5th, 1855, to French immigrant parents in Terre Haute, Indiana. It was a then booming town. His parents had a prosperous, successful grocery store. And when he went to work on the railroad when he was 14, it was more out of sense of adventure than desperation. That sort of early experience ended up radicalizing him. He was involved in union politics early on as a labor leader, but it wasn't until 1889 and 1894 that there were two major strikes. The first was the Burlington strike in 1889, and the second was the Pullman strike. Burlington strike was sort of a local strike. The Pullman strike was massive. It touched much of the country. Both of the strikes were actually losses for workers. They sort of convinced Debs that a harmonious relationship with corporations was not possible. He would later write, "I was baptized in socialism in the roar of conflict, in the gleam of every bayonet, in the flash of every rifle, the class struggle was revealed." So he was writing particularly about the Pullman strike there. It started out as a strike of workers that built the sleeping cars. The strike ended up expanding across the railroad when other railroad workers acted in solidarity. And it really exploded from there. Grover Cleveland ended up sending federal troops to Chicago and putting down the strike. Debs had already been moving away from his more conservative conception of unionism, but this was like a real kind of wake-up call. This sort of laid bare the extent to which corporations sort of controlled the machinery of politics. They would use the violence of the state to throw their opponents in jail. Workers, if they tried to push for their rights, they could get shot down, they could be bloodied in a strike, and then their leaders or the workers themselves could be thrown into jail. And it sort of shaped his perspective on capitalism and also his view of prisons as well. On January 1st, 1897, Debs had helped found and was leading the Pullman strike. He wrote to the membership, "The issue is socialism versus capitalism. I am for socialism because I am for humanity." So finally, Debs comes out as a socialist. In 1900, Debs ran for president for the first time. This first time it was on the Social Democratic Party ticket, which would end up merging with another smaller party to form the Socialist Party of America, which is the ticket that Debs would run on 4 more times. He traveled constantly, first as a labor organizer and agitator, and then once he became a socialist, stumping for the Socialist Party. So he would talk at labor halls, auditoriums, gymnasiums. By all accounts, he was an incredibly compelling speaker.
Debs was a tireless campaigner. He gave speech after speech after speech, day after day after day. And what he knew then and what we know now is that the change that we need is never going to come on the top. Yeah, he wanted to be president, but he used the electoral system to get the word out about a new vision of justice for America.
He insisted that while the U.S.'s political and economic system was marred from the beginning by chattel slavery, democracy in America could be won if workers took on their bosses at the workplace and the polling station. Class struggle was the precondition for winning a genuine democracy, which he called the Workers' Republic or the Cooperative Commonwealth. In the political arena, that meant organizing in parties, specifically the Socialist Party, and then in the economic realm, it meant organizing together in industrial unions across racial and ethnic lines, both quote-unquote unskilled workers and skilled workers, getting together in the same union and using their sort of collective power to take on the boss and sort of try to win a workplace and eventually a society that would, give them more power over their basic living conditions and the conditions of their life. The Socialist Party was a very broad mass party. Debs was on the left of the party. The party was divided on three key questions. One was trade unionism, one was electoral strategy, and one was racial equality. So Debs thought that it was centrally important for the socialist movement to be pushing industrial unionism that would organize workers of all races and skill sets. He was a staunch believer in racial egalitarianism. He thought that in terms of electoral strategy, socialists should be trying to attract people and win votes. He thought it was more important to advance a sense of cohesion among workers. In short, you could just say advance the class struggle and sort of unite workers at the ballot box to sort of emancipate themselves, rather than just try to maximize votes and take in whoever might agree with one specific policy on the platform. Despite these really severe disagreements and differences, as I said, the Socialist Party was a mass organization. By 1912, Debs ran yet again. He attracted 900,000 votes. The Socialist Party could claim 120,000 members, so larger than what DSA has done in the last several years. The Socialist Party had a little under double the membership in a much smaller country. So there were Jewish garment workers in New York City, German brewery workers in Milwaukee, white tenant workers in Oklahoma, black lumber workers in Louisiana. All of them were socialists. The Socialist Party was very optimistic about its prospects, about its ability to win the sort of cooperative commonwealth. Then World War I hit in 1914, and the Socialist Party in the United States, unlike their European counterparts, to their great credit, staunchly opposed the war. And this really cut against majority opinion. But Debs and the Socialist Party refused to relent. Debs told another Socialist Party organizer, "I cannot be free while my comrades and fellow workers are jailed for warning people about this war." This was probably in 1917 or 1918. Already, some of his comrades had been jailed. People like Kate Richards O'Hare, they'd already been jailed for speaking out against the war. On July 16th, 1918, Debs delivered his famous Canton speech. He talked to about 1,200 people, as I said, at this public park in Canton. The central point that he made was that workers around the world had to unite against their despotic oppressors, and that ordinary men and women must carry forth the socialist banner and resist this sort of war that was being touted as a war for democracy, but was what he saw as a rich man's war. Poor and working people had to fight. So federal authorities arrested him the following month for this speech. He was convicted in Cleveland, but not before delivering another stirring speech. He told the court, "While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. Where there is a soul in prison, I am not free." And he acted like it once he got to prison. He treated the prisoners as equals, gave them many of the gifts he received from supporters, and the prisoners absolutely loved him. This time he would spend 3 years in prison. He thought about prison as another sort of autocratic, brutalizing institution under capitalism. The most well-known thing that Debs did when he was in prison was run for president. He did this in 1920, received about 1 million votes. He was finally released on Christmas Day 1921 after a vigorous campaign by the Socialist Party to free World War I's political prisoners, including Debs. And when he left, the prisoners inside cheered Debs, who they recognized as one of their own. Debs died on October 20th, 1926, having never fully recovered from his stint in prison.
This was truly a man of the people who just loved humanity and had a vision for a different type of country and world. He was often referred to as the leader of the Socialist Party and all that stuff. He didn't like that because he said, if I lead you, if I am the leader and I lead you there and you just follow me because I'm the leader, somebody else is going to come along and lead you in a different direction. You don't need leaders. You need to think for yourself. Democracy works. Very profound statement.